All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and start our recording. Thank you to, there's just a few of us in class today. I know it's probably a little bit of a different feel for this because it's not an expectation necessarily that we have these Zoom meetings. But I like to because I've taught quite a few online classes. As a matter of fact, I've taught this class in person at HLG. I don't know if I told you this in the introduction, but I've also taught it at Kansas State probably 6 or 7 times. And there's just a lot that gets lost when all you are looking at is just PowerPoints and when you don't really have that human connection. And so I like to go ahead and put together these short, opportunities. And that way, if you do have questions, you can come to me. And so that's one option that we have. And then the other one, I'm going to be, and I get it if you're not in class too, a little bit, because I know even though it's just the first week of school and on Fridays, you probably don't have traditional classes as much because of the fact that this is chapel time for that slot on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. But, you also have sometimes athletic, run throughs or film sessions, and then also clubs and groups like to meet during this time. But that being said, I know, I know who's here and who's not. And if you're present and aware and listening and showing up, if you can to class, it definitely helps. So that being said, welcome. I want to start off by just going over something I'd sent out an announcement about. There was a little confusion about this class and its relationship to another one. I'm teaching both of them. I'm teaching them both online. So it's a little kind of odd to me, but it's kind of how it's playing out. Personal finance, which is this class, right? And principles of finance. Principles of finance is like an upper level business overview of like the ins and outs of the finance world. And last year, before we did some consolidating, Mr. Hall and myself were thinking about putting these two together. And so some of you who had maybe had an early advising meeting might have heard that and then kind of, decided to take personal finance. Well, if you're needing it for the upper level class, which I think it's Fin 323, we're gonna need to try to switch you. And I've had two students that have switched out of here into the other one. The other one is full as well. And so I'll have to communicate back and forth with registrar as well as you. And so if that's the case for you, if you're needing this for that upper level business credit, then let me know. But, this class is kind of more relationship to your personal finances. It's supposed to be kind of an option as that like extra general education option. There used to be a lot of people that took business management to fit that. And I tried to kind of convince everyone that this class would probably be more better, of like, let's say you're an education major and you need the general education option of like psychology, sociology. Well, now we have personal finance and a couple others. I'm hoping to see this class grow in traction, which we do have a lot of people in, which is great. So anyway, that being said, I need to just be quiet and share my screen and keep moving on. So I'm going to open up our class information and just make sure that we are all on board with the material that needs to be covered today. And my Mac is already being kind of slow on me. All right. So I do have a few PowerPoints I want to kind of dive into. But before I get there, I do want to let you know that next week on Thursday, I'm going to come do lunch at the college. And again, it's one of those things, if your schedule fits it, it would be great to meet you in person. I'll have my laptop with me. Hopefully you'll recognize me. I'll sit at one of the bigger tables with some empty seats as well. I just want, and I'll sit out in the open. For those of you who are on campus, I just want an opportunity, if you're comfortable, or if you have questions, coming and asking me about those things. I have other students in that other class as well that'll probably be coming up to me because they'll have a test due the end of that weekend. So anyway, that being said, I think 11, let's see, you guys probably don't have much going on from like 11:45 to 12:30. So I'll try to be in there during that time period. So you kind of see what I look like a little bit. Don't hesitate, be friendly, come and stop and say hello if you, even if you don't have anything you need to go over. Like I did in my introductory video, a great place to always start is in the modules section. Here you'll see in our overview all of the material that we have to go over. There's a lot of PowerPoints, and then there's also some notes outlines. And I'll tell you, the notes outlines are good. I put them in there because that's what I used to make my PowerPoints out of. And I, as a student, always hated having to transpose information from the PowerPoint over to notes. And so I just decided I'd go ahead and give you those outlines. One thing, as you kind of dive into them, you'll note that they're probably a little bit different. I try to make them colorful and interesting, especially our PowerPoints. And so I'm going to begin just jumping right into those and kind of go over a little bit of the material on a personal basis until we run out of time, probably. So the first one, see if I can find it, would be Module 1, Lesson 1. And I kind of went over it briefly the other day, but I never got to this important question of how do we know what is good practice in the world of personal finance? And so, the question is, what's an example of good personal financial behavior? And you could probably think of some ideas like a person maybe could budget. A person could not spend all of their money. A person could, make sound investment decisions. And then the question I always ask a student at that point is, how do you know that? How do you know that that is the case? And then when they give another behavior, I say the same thing. How do you know that to be the truth? And in personal finance, there is a lot of people having a fairly good idea of what they think best practice is. And it's not necessarily validated or verified. It's just kind of a guess. Like, it makes sense that you would want to save your money. And I agree, that is good practice, right? But why? And is there anything more behind that? And the truth is, there is. I have had an opportunity to get my PhD in personal finance, and now am doing financial planning. Have been at HLG for a long time now, but when I started digging into the field of personal finance, you start learning that there is a whole a cohort, a group of people out there doing research on it, just like you would expect research to be done in all of the other field, like the medical field. Like, how do you know if a medicine is going to be good for this person or that person? Well, you have to go through a fairly rigorous process to figure that out. And that's what we do in this field. So how do we know that? Well, consensus, common sense, best practice, doing what rich people do, and most of us probably actually doing what our parents do, has been the expectation in the past. But it is actually a fast growing and fairly rigorous, disciplined, and kind of, here's what I've learned while I was at my time at this place at Kansas State. Kansas State has one of the best programs in it, so been very fortunate to figure that out. Do we need to cover the importance of our personal finances? And that's the next point I want to say. The answer is yes, right? Like, you're gonna probably, I hope, cross my fingers, that you think this class will be very helpful, not just in the material that we cover, learning a little bit about math and actually a lot about psychology and sociology, and how it all rolls into how our behavior is in personal finance, but that you actually realize that this is stuff that we'll be able to apply. And I always put this Bible verse up, right? Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. And man, that's such a truth from this, kind of sums up the heart of what we are, right? Like, we're going to be talking a lot about money and a lot about different aspects of that, but in reality, right, it is how we handle this is actually kind of a microscope into our desires, our struggles, our victories we have in life, our ability to make wise decisions and hold to those. We learn actually that there's a lot more, and I'm going to mention this in just a minute, but there's a lot more psychology to personal finance than there is actual numbers. So when you saw the class, listing, you probably thought this is going to be a lot of like, mathematics and number crunching and spreadsheets. But the truth is there is a lot of psychology to this. And it's something that we're all going to have to deal with, right? Like every single person is going to have to figure out how to handle their personal finances. The more you have, the harder it gets, actually. And the less you have, it's still pretty hard, right? Because it's actually more important that you're able to survive. And so you can look over these examples of how money is even here in the United States. And I know some of you are international students, you are probably maybe getting your first taste, or you've been here for a couple of years, a taste of what it's like in this nation. But like, what's interesting is, we have.
Creo que estoy hablando, ¿no?
Hi, Nicholas, I can hear you.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, you're good. I'm glad to know you're here.
Yeah.
You're speaking Spanish, so I can't understand what we'd be saying anyway, but I can hear you. Anyway, so it's still an issue. It's a challenge for us in the United States, even though we have a pretty, high standard of living and we're pretty well off. And so all that being said, what I'm priming you for is the fact that, okay, we need to know this material, right? And because there's a lot on the line. And the truth is, this is kind of interesting, but we don't actually naturally have good relationships with money. Okay, and that becomes a challenge that all of us are going to at some point have to overcome. We see money become power hungry. We want things we can't have. We judge ourselves and others based upon those nice things. It's very difficult to say, I am happy with my money, because there's so many things, so many psychological barriers to that. And so in light of that reality, right, we need to learn more about that. We need to learn how good money relationships work. And so, this is kind of my tie-in to one of the assignments that you guys have to do. But I've got an assignment, and I love it, where you guys look into money scripts and trying to figure out what those are. What are money scripts? Well, money scripts are kind of the things that we're learned, whether we know it or not. We're taught, I should say, when we're children growing up. And so you can be someone who is money, sees money kind of as a status symbol and equates money to power. You can be someone who is money vigilant, meaning if I work really hard and save my dimes, I can make something of myself. You could be money avoidant, where you have been taught that people who have money aren't good. And typically people who don't have money say that a lot. So you've got all these different money scripts that kind of interplay with how we treat our money. And if you really think about money, what is it? It's a vessel of transfer, an exchange for the way that we, operate: time, work, goods, fun, social status. And a lot of times we see money more for one thing than the other. Like if you're someone who just loves to have fun, you're going to see that, right? Money gets me fun things, right? It gets me a jet ski. Money gets me restaurants and going out to party and buying fun stuff, right? If you see money as an exchange for work, right, you're always kind of realizing, I spent this much time or that much time working, and it gets me that far, this far. And a lot of times that's not a very common way of looking at work. So that being said, that kind of is a segue into the next PowerPoint that I have. And I gotta fly through things here because this is an accelerated class. It goes by pretty quick, right? But then also it is one of those classes, there it was, one of those classes where a lot of these PowerPoints have a little bit of information on each of them and a little bit of color as well. And so talking more about that concept, like just what is money, right? Like, yeah, everyone knows what it is in the physical sense, but it goes deeper than that, right? Because it is a source of a lot of different undercurrents in our life. And so here's a great little example. I just added this from Twitter. I got you a car, right? Or whatever you want. And that's really kind of how we view money. It's kind of a catch-all for all of the things in our life. And so if we want to have good outcomes for the things in our life, in this instance, if the husband wants the wife to be happy, right, he's going to need to make sure that he's providing for his family. And that's just the way it is. And that's good. Matter of fact, God made us for that reason, to want to work, right, to want to be independent and self-sufficient, to be able to provide for our family. Like there is a certain sense of empowerment that is good, that comes from work. It's fulfilling, right? And it's meant to, totally and completely satisfy us. Now, the joke is, of course, that's not always the case. And so, you think about that money, what does it mean to you? Do you see it more as a way to get status? Hey, I drive a nice car because I'm trying to signal to others just how well off I am, or do you see it more as, like we said, fun? Like, do you see it as something you want to hoard and protect, because you never know what tomorrow brings? There's a lot of like deep issues, some of them good, some of them bad, that interplay with us here, right? And so some people think this, right? Money means everything to us. And so it's important for us to understand just that. And I'm not going to go over all of this PowerPoint, but I wanted to show you a few of those pictures to illustrate those things. So if you guys could look over that one on your own, that would be great. But I do want to go ahead and go to the fourth PowerPoint we have. And I'm going to, again, like I said, kind of be hopping in and out of different PowerPoints as lesson one kind of grows. It will, at some point, we won't have as many. Matter of fact, I think next week we only have one or two to go over. So I'm not going to go over this PowerPoint now that I pull it up, but this is one about just our consumption mindset, especially here in the United States, a very common thing that we have, a challenge we have that we got to kind of overcome. That's the money one. I think this is the one I want to pull up. Yeah, this is it. At some point I had downloaded that one, but I also have to teach my next class here in a few minutes. So I'm had a lot of PowerPoints open. So more of the material side of things, and I've got about 10 minutes left with you. So not too much time. We want to understand a little bit about the basics of our personal financial picture and what we have and kind of who we are. And so this is maybe more traditionally what you think of when you think of this class, right? So you want to figure out your finances. What is your first step? And I will say, guys, like this is big time stuff, because I have this new job now. I really enjoy it. I get to work with people, a lot of near retirement people who want to make sure that they have enough for retirement and are on the right track. But even some younger people, it's not common to be really well organized and have a good understanding of your money and where it goes and your finances. As a matter of fact, usually that's the opposite of the case. Like we have to try to really dig to figure out just how much people spend, what their budget looks like, as well as if, putting all those pieces together, whether or not they will be able to have good outcomes, that they want in their life. And so if you really think about that, right, there's a question that I usually ask, and it comes from a process called the solution focus in financial therapy. And the question is phrased like this. If you could sum up your desires for financial success in the present and the future in one stated goal, what would it be? And typically, a lot of times people you hear will say, I want to be happy. I want to be financially satisfied. I want to be peaceful, comfortable. I want to know that my future's taken care of. I want to know my children, my family can be taken care of. Some person who has kind of a spreadsheet mind might say, I want to maximize my opportunities. I'd say my utility with the money that I have. So, do some of those responses go beyond just money? And the truth is, absolutely. It is a stated goal, right? You're just listing a goal of what you'd want. But that goal is oftentimes a mirror. Okay. And so there's a way of kind of looking into the heart of people, kind of seeing that question. So I love asking that question to people and seeing what their answers are. A lot of times they will put up the shield and say, my goal is to protect what I have already. Okay. And that is a mindset. I call it a scarcity mindset, right? You're scared to see things run out. You're scared of the bad times ahead. You're scared of all these other things. I want to use my money as a shield to it. And then you have other people who see kind of a different picture, right? And they're climbing on freedom. I think that's a really neat analogy there in that picture, right? Like you have not a scarcity mindset at that point. You would have a Alberto, welcome. I'm glad you're here. Hey, could you mute? I'm getting feedback. Thanks. All right. So, like I said, those goals are reflections of us, and they show us our psychology. They're affected by our past, our emotions, our temperament, our social setting, those money scripts that you're going to be doing some assignment work on. And our financial plan really puts us on a track, if followed, gives us the greatest chance of having all our needs met. And so if you have the book, all right, like a digital copy or not, you'll see those listed out. And so that's kind of the very first thing, okay, that we get to go over. For some reason I'm not popping up, but anyway, you can kind of see it there, right? That's the thing that you want to use. And then the first chapter, I think, goes over those materials. So anyway, that being said, okay, we have basically all the different aspects of a financial plan, which really deals with how we handle our cash and how we handle our budget, how we handle our long-term planning and spending. And so we need to understand what a budget is. We need to understand what liquidity means. Liquidity just means cash. What are we doing when we make income that produces cash that goes into our wallet, our accounts, right? And how are we like handling that to make sure we have it in the right places? So you want to be able to track money in as well as money out. When you track money out, we call that a budget, right? Like money's going here, money's going there. Okay. But ultimately, what this does, okay, and I don't know if I put it in writing, okay. But yeah, I don't think I do. What a budget does is it allows us the freedom to know with certainty, all right, that we've made the right financial choices. And so that is a really big, important piece, because I will say there's so many people in our world, okay, who don't ever see that. They so often are just kind of wandering through with their finances, never really intentional with it. And they think, well, I have more freedom if I pay it less attention. And the truth is that's not how it works at all, right? The truth is you kind of are always caught in limbo. I want to go on this trip. I want to buy this thing. I want to spend my money in this way or that way. How do I know if I have enough, if I'm not really properly figuring out the whole picture of that and doing, part of that involves a budget. So a budget actually frees you when you go to the store. Like, I know for a fact I have this money earmarked to spend on whatever clothing, right? So now I know I can buy with complete conviction and satisfaction in that. Okay. So that's a little bit about that information. I see a couple people joining in for our 11:30 Zoom, which I'm going to have to kick you out. I'm realizing that, Lonnie and Nick, because I'm going to have to stop recording and save this one. And so I'll do that and then jump right back. But I'm actually just finished up. This is personal finance. Now I'm realizing I should have had a different meeting room for both these classes. But anyway, we'll be okay. Last thing, personal finance students. We have a due date coming up on Sunday. to go over all of the things that we, your quiz, your assignment, and your discussion. Is there any questions that you guys have about those things?
Question about the book, is that okay?
Yeah, go ahead, Alex.
So I think assigned to us to get the sixth edition of the book you wanted us to get, and I found the seventh edition. Is that okay? Or it was the opposite? Maybe both.
Right. So I just want to be completely honest with you. If you're the kind of person that thinks that they need more material to be able to study and review, and I will say in this class, I do follow that book pretty closely, then you could get it. I recommend getting it online because it's instant and it has ease of access. If you don't choose to get it, you will have all the material that you need to get an A in this class. Okay, so just understand that, and that's maybe not at you as much as it is the rest of the class. Alex from Bulgaria, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Very good. Excellent. Does that answer your
Okay,
question,
thank you.
Alex?
Yeah.
All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and log out. Like I said, I'm going to have to stop recording and end this class. And sorry to the principals of finance people joining me in 5 minutes. We're going to jump back on. So